Any more questions? Okay, and I'll repeat it. It's about, you saw the Q&A with Commissioner Price and the Sunday paper. Right. And I want to respond to some of that. I actually think I need to. One was I wasn't doing enough in voter registration.
Down there,
Yeah.
south.
Well, let me just say, and that's what it was kind of inferring. It was kind of inferring that I would put, with Danny over voter registration, I'd put my voter registration file against any file in this state. And it is not just clean, it's accurate, everything is done by the book. We have always, I mean, Susan knows better than anybody. We've worked with the League of Women Voters, we've worked with every organization. We have never turned down a request to come out anywhere in this county and assist if they needed us to come out and deputize people or set up something. We don't proactively try to go certain areas. Y'all know how that's problematic if we do that. And I've got to be very careful. We have registered consistently as high as any other. I can give you some numbers. I even wrote them down just to tell you. In 2008, I registered 141,000 new voters that year. 141,000 new Dallas County voters in 2008. 55,000 in 2006 and 40,000 in 2010. A comment made was, we have less registered voters. Do you know why we have? And when I responded to the paper, letter to them, I said, they said, you just asked. I would have told them. Under the Help America Vote Act, we have a centralized database now of voter registration. The official list is handled at the Secretary of State's level. The importance of telling you that is, if I'm living in Dallas and I move to Collin County, almost instantly it's known, because the second I register there, it's noted on the file and sent down to me to take that person off the file. Now, that never was that way before 2006. We had tens of thousands of people on our rolls that had moved and just not told the other county, or the other county, there was no way to know, because before 2006, the only way you could know is if you put on your voter application you were registered in another county. Sometimes you got it, sometimes you didn't, until you mailed out cards. So I want to tell you how that works, and we'll give you some numbers here, just real quick, just 2 numbers. The reason it's important is we purge every 2 years. When we mail out voter cards, any cards that come back to us, they stay on a suspense file for a 2-year period. In 2000, I purged 111,000 people from that purge list, the suspense list, because they had moved. In 2010, 66,000 people got purged. You know why it was only 66,000? We didn't have that deadwood. We didn't have all of those voters on our file that shouldn't have been on the file. We have a very, very sophisticated method now of tracking voters and knowing if they move and updating their records. So it has nothing to do with that. And I want to address the $2 million. He said, I'm sitting on $2 million. I'm not sitting on $2 million. HAVA appropriated $16 million for Dallas County. I spent $14 million already. I had $2 million more to spend this year. When I did my orientation with Paige Jenkins and Commissioner Garcia in December, I showed them $1 million worth of things I wanted to do with that remaining $2 million. It was server upgrades in the voter registration side. It was end-to-end system for absentee by mail. It was a help desk. It was expanding the warehouse. So you see, you can say things and you can twist it around, and that's what upsets me more about anything. Just say you don't want me and I'm fine and I'll leave. But don't quit, just quit trying to say there are things that aren't really true. I mean, that's what the problem is.
We have a system in place where when a voter votes, he leaves a paper trail. He signs his name in front of an election judge. If you have someone who is out there determined to commit voter fraud and sign somebody else's name, or have some other record of a fraudulent document, they leave a paper trail. But right now we're seeing the Republicans go overboard with this, in my view, with this voter identification issue. And I sat in the Senate gallery while this was being debated and while they had in the Senate Committee of the Whole and this whole issue discussed, and I saw all these issues come forward but be ignored by the Republican senators. In my view, what is your view of this need for it? Do we need? We have there's a case going on right now where a candidate is accusing another side of voter fraud and is showing all kinds of documentation in a court of law where that kind of thing belongs. Do you think we need any additional voter identification with a photograph? The person has to show a photograph in order to vote on election day?
I never thought that was such just a political statement more than a necessity. And if you ever worked in early voting or election day polling place, a lot of people will just show one of those forms of ID. The ID bills last session were way better than the ones you're seeing right now. There are 10 bills filed, but they picked one that requires a photo ID. Last session, at least they had the ability to show 2 other forms of ID, just like a utility bill, a bank statement, or something else. These are really stringent bills. I never thought, I don't think fraud, let me just say to you, I don't think fraud happens that way. I don't think, and I think there's not ever been proof to show me fraud happens that way. But my whole time in elections, I've heard people say that, well, there are busloads of people driving up to a polling place and they're getting off and people are handing them license or they're handing them IDs. I never saw that happen. And I never reacted to that. But I'll tell you, there are people out there that believe that, and they believe that that's a real situation. The most vulnerable areas have to be by mail, and it's only because when you mail out a ballot, you don't know what happens to it until it comes back in. In a polling place, you have people working, both parties, you have poll watchers, you have other capabilities. If somebody mails a ballot to a voter, and I don't think there's a lot of fraud, but that's where you're most vulnerable. Except for if you don't have both parties represented, and if someone wants to sign in a bunch of people and vote a bunch of ballots, how would you ever know? How would you ever know? There are vulnerabilities. It's not a perfect system, but it is one that has checks and balances that if it's done right, you have enough to know that it's going to be okay.
I hope the news media carries your position on.
Well, they can now, because who's going to fire me? Yeah.